Good afternoon. I am Marvin Lopez, and I am Director of Student Programs here in the College of Engineering. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Momentum Speaker Series. How many of you have been here before? Have been to the series before? Okay, and how many of you have not? All right, so you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat. Tonight you're going to hear from an amazing set of your peers. Students just like you who were here not long ago, sitting where you're sitting, looking for opportunities to make a difference and make an impact, who have now gone on to make an impact in an amazing array of opportunities to share with you what does success and what does impact as an engineer look like. So you'll hear from a number of your peers talk about study abroad, internships, even public policy. So what we want you to take away as you listen to your peers is engineering is not just about building things and building gadgets and building apps, but it's really making an impact in society in a number of ways, in a number of very diverse ways, in a number of global diverse ways. So you'll have a chance to hear from them about that. And two, the other thing we want you to take away is that you too, all of you, any of you, can be up here for the next one and the next few that we'll have. On that, I may put in a plug for the next event we'll have on October 12th, which will be Stories of Resilience. So hear more about that, but we look forward to having you at the next one. I do want to thank a number of people that make this possible. Of course, none of this happens on its own. Our committee, our founding and producing committee, so Mark Ansel, Andrew Ansel, and Francesca Ledesma down here. So thank you. The communications team, or my team, NESS, Laura Vogt in the back. Laura. And Luis Castillo, who takes amazing pictures and does amazing things for us and with you, so get to know Luis. And with that, I want to turn it over to Francesca, who will be your MC for the evening. Thank you again for coming. Enjoy yourselves. Stick around. We'll have pizza afterwards and an opportunity to network with the speakers. So again, thank you.
Thanks, Marvin. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the Momentum Speaker Series. I'm Francesca. I'll be your MC for the night. And so I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm a junior studying industrial engineering and operations research. And again, I want to give thanks to Andrew and Mark for helping us all put this together, and the SS team. So looks like most of you guys haven't been to Momentum before, so I'll give you a little bit of background. It's a TED-style speaker series for students to give advice, share their experiences and perspectives with their peers. And so the timeline for tonight is that you'll hear from 7 of your peers, and then afterwards there'll be a speaker panel, so you get to ask some questions. And with that, let's welcome our first speaker to the stage, Mark Jaffee. So He's a junior studying civil and environmental engineering, and this past summer he took 2 positions, one here at Berkeley as a research intern, and another at Gannett Fleming. So with that, here's Mark.
So as Francesca said, thank you for the introduction. My name is Mark Jaffee. I am a civil and environmental engineering major, graduating in 2019, so that means I'm a third-year student right now. And yeah, so a little bit about me. That's when I was in high school. Oh, cute Mark. So, my interests are mainly in civil systems, infrastructure, and transportation. And so let's sort of reverse back to May of 2017, when I was sort of considering all these opportunities that I had and really what to do with them. I had 2 offers. One was a 30-hour per week internship, and the other was a 10-hour per week research position. And I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really know whether I wanted to do either research or an internship, so I did what any sensible college student would do. I called my parents, and so they sort of talked about it, and I sort of suggested my situation to my mom, and she said, "Go for both." I freaked out on her. I'm like, "What the hell are you thinking? Like, I can't do both positions. I'm either here or there. I can't do both." So she said, "Just try both. It'll keep you busy." That was the number one thing. Second thing, it's going to be a great experience, and I'm so glad that I sort of went through with it, and I'll show you some of those outcomes that I had from this experience. So at the end of the day, I decided to take on 2 positions. So I worked the mornings at the internship and then the afternoons at research. So some of the research experience, this was about 2 summers ago, but I co-authored a paper with the Transportation Sustainability Research Center. They're a transportation-focused research unit here at Berkeley. And it was a study on sustainability performance metrics. So Caltrans came to us and said, we want to use these words called livability, accessibility, and prosperity. What do they mean? How can we implement them at the different levels of regional, local, state governments? That was a great opportunity because it allowed me to sort of interact with industry experts. How do you go from knowing nothing to being an expert in a certain field? How do you justify conclusions? How do you really navigate this big open world? And it was a great collaboration. I think I really improved my people skills, and it was a lot of fun. Currently, for about a year now, I've been helping with benchmarking the North American, South American, and world car sharing markets. So everyone's familiar with different operations like Zipcar. You've seen them around here. Get Around. We inventory those to see how they're growing and how the transportation modes are changing over time. And it's been a great opportunity to network with operators, and certainly going outside my comfort zone and talking to CEOs of these companies and really elaborating on my people skills. Whether it be a email correspondence or a phone call, there's really a set, really good set skills, people skills, sorry, that I've acquired from this sort of project. So it's been a great experience. For the internship, I interned with a company called, let's see here. There we go. All right. I interned with a company called Nguyen Fleming. For the latter half of the internship, I was put on the Caltrain project. They are a civil consulting firm. So Caltrain came to Nguyen Fleming and sort of said, we want to build this project. How can you help us? And so I was sort of there. I don't really have the technical background to do specific design work in terms of designing structures and whatnot. But I was just there present at the meetings and helping with some of the administrative stuff. And it was such an interesting experience. Being there in a big project office where you have different firms collaborating. You have people that have completely different skill sets than you, and you're collaborating on a shared goal. I remember being in some of these big meetings where we're making decisions about the project, and our decisions will translate down to the users of Caltrain. Is everyone familiar with Caltrain? Yeah? Okay, so Caltrain is a commuter rail system along the peninsula, so they stretch from San Francisco to San Jose. And so this project is going to electrify the entire system, 52 miles of track at a cost of $1.7 billion. So yeah, it was great to be around the head engineering staff of Caltrain and my project manager, and I sort of thought to myself, what have I done to sort of sit at the same table as these big people that are sort of like larger than life, right? They're professionals, they know what they're doing, they've had more years of experience than I've been alive. And if I can take away anything from this, it is whenever you go into an internship opportunity and you feel out of place, just understand that you deserve to be there, that you should own this opportunity and go forth and just learn as much as you can. So let's talk a little bit about research and industry. How many of you are interested in research? Okay, some. What about industry? Hey, more people. What about both? Those people both? Okay, great. So I was in your shoes, and I sort of said, I take both these opportunities to try to see which one was best for me. I still don't know, but I know a little bit more than I did. So research is really thinking about critical thinking. You might be posed with a question that needs to be answered, but there isn't really a clear-cut solution. So it's all about delivering answers to interesting questions or systems. And industry is more task-oriented. So as you saw in the Caltrain project, Caltrain wanted this project to be built, and the Nguyen Fleming, the company that I work for, helped them do that. It's all about innovation and efficiency for industry, and research is more about understanding and describing. So you can sort of see the creative element versus the applied. And the one thing that unites them is professionalism. Throughout both of these, you need to conduct yourself at a high level of integrity and being on time and being true to your work and being reliable. Let's see here. So sort of some tips that I recommend for getting the most out of an opportunity. I'm going to stand over here so I don't have to wait so much. Here we go. That's all right. Okay, so number one is understanding your goals. Before you go towards an opportunity, make sure you understand what you want to get out of it. When you're submitting your cover letter and resume, try to see what do you really want to accomplish? What do you want to learn? During your internship, build a working trust and integrity. So you really need to be thinking about how can I deliver on my work? And you'll see that your coworkers will give you bigger and bigger projects. The more you can demonstrate to them that you're trustworthy and that you uphold your work with lots of integrity. So reflect. During the long rides home from BART and Caltrain, I would just reflect and think about what do I like, what do I not like? Because when you come out of college, you sort of want to know what you want to do. So definitely sort of jotting down a journal or some sort would definitely help with that. And maintain relationships. That's really important. The way that I maintain relationships is just by sending a bunch of different little newsletters, some pictures of me and what I'm up to. And my coworkers love to sort of see where I'm going, what I'm up to, and that's actually what got me an internship with Gannett Fleming this summer and the whole Caltrain project. I had interned with them in high school, and who knows, opportunities open up. So that is the end of my presentation. However, here's one inspiring quote from Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin was the second man on the moon next to Neil Armstrong. And one truth I have discovered for sure, when you believe that all the things are possible and you are willing to work hard to accomplish your goals, you can achieve the next impossible dream. No dream is too high. I don't mean the cliche, but I really mean it. If you constantly plan and you think about where you want to go, you will achieve whatever you want to accomplish. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's my personal email if you'd like to take a picture of that. Also, I'm on campus all the time, grinding in the engineering library, so if you ever have any questions or want to approach me, definitely say that. And yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mark. That's awesome. There's always that debate between research and industry, and that's awesome that you got to do both, this summer. And so I'd love to welcome to the stage the next speaker, Lily Nguyen. And everyone give a round of applause for Lily. So her background is that she's a senior studying computer science. And this past summer, she actually got the chance to intern at Uber. We all heard about that one. And Lily is going to describe her situation where she actually had to switch teams in the middle of the summer. And so it's really unusual for that, but she has really interesting things to say about it. So without further ado, here's Lily.
Is this good? Yes. Awesome. Hi, everyone. How many of you read the news about Uber this summer? Great, great. Guess what? I guess I know what you're all thinking right now then. I'm going to speak about my tell-all. You should call the New York Times right now. But that's not going to be the case. I'm going to talk about something that could happen anywhere. Uber, Lyft, Apple, Facebook, Google. And I honestly struggle to find the words to describe my internship because, as Francesca said earlier, I had too many internships. The first one was on one of Uber's international growth teams doing mostly engineering, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. And so halfway through, I transferred to Uber's data design team, and I was working on maps, working on design tools, working on things that impacted the whole organization. And that was something that I really, really fell in love with, but this wasn't something that I planned. It's something that I thought was necessary for my personal growth. And so how did we get here? Let's rewind to day one. And just like interning at other tech companies, day one was really exciting. I heard a lot of things, but I was also just so excited to meet people that I've only seen on the news and get the ball rolling as soon as possible. So I asked my manager, hey, I'm really interested in data and design and engineering and the intersection of everything. Is there a project where I could grow as an engineer, but also as a designer? And he said no. And to add insult to injury, he put me on a project that was far away from any of that, all the way in the back end. And so after that first week, I sat at my desk, and after everyone left, I had a good cry. And this happened for a little bit longer, and then I realized that I could either sit there, I could talk to people, and try and do something about that. So I did. And one of the greatest things about interning at a tech company is you get to learn from the journeys, the mistakes, everything of all the people around you. Some people call this networking, but honestly, you should just try and make genuine connections with people. There was this one conversation I had that stuck in my mind with one of the designers I met, and he was talking about how he, as a recent grad out of Chico State, he was struggling to find a job, you know? He was trying to get his foot in the door, blanketing his resume everywhere and crossing his fingers. And that really put things in perspective for me. Most people struggle to get their foot in the door, but here I was, my whole body, and and it was just up to me to go and get it. And one of the other things that really helped was just talking to people and having a squad. And one of the great things about attending Berkeley is that everybody around you is also doing really, really cool things and have similar experiences, but kind of different. And you get to bounce ideas off of them. And I remember I was FaceTiming a friend, and I was telling her about a meeting I had where one of the other engineers told me, hey, it's really cool that you're into design and all, but maybe you should just stick to engineering, you know? You might not get a return offer in the end if you keep doing what you're doing. And I asked her, is this okay? And she said, whoa, what the hell? Like, maybe you should just stick to your guns, and maybe you should talk to university recruiting about it. And so I did. And I walked into the room, but before I did, I had a lot of self-reflection. And this is really, really important because only you can sell yourself. Nobody else is going to defend yourself. Nobody else is going to help you if you don't know what kind of help you want. And it's not just about going in and saying, I hate my job, I hate my team, I hate my projects. That's just complaining. And so I told them, this is what I want to do. I made a list before, and then they were finally able to help me, and I'm so grateful that they did. But in the end, if everything doesn't work out, remember that it's temporary. I remember my first week. I thought to myself, 1 week down, 11 weeks to go, whatever. And by the end of it, I realized that I didn't have enough time to finish everything that I wanted to do, and maybe that meant that I was in the right place. And I know most of you next summer are probably going to arrive at your internships wide-eyed, hoping to get a name on the resume, hoping to meet people, hoping to make some money, and those are all very, very noble things. But what I want you to remember is that you should try and put yourself out there. Find projects that you are motivated to wake up in the morning for, and projects you can't stop talking about at night. And hopefully you'll also meet a great number of lifelong friends and mentors along the way. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lily. That was awesome. I really love that bit about, reflecting and trying to stick up for yourself because you know yourself the best, better than anyone else. So I want to introduce the next speaker to stage, Jarrett Duran. Everyone give it up. He is a senior studying chemical engineering with a minor in industrial engineering and operations research. And this past summer, he studied abroad at the European Innovation Academy in Turin, Italy. So you'll hear his experience about creating his startup, My Tours.
Hello. Ciao, everyone. My name is Jarrett Duran, and like Francesca introduced me earlier, I am a senior majoring in chemical engineering with a minor in industrial engineering and operations research. And this afternoon, I'm going to discuss my entrepreneurial experience and the human value I found in the characteristics of diversity, resilience, and initiative. So this past summer, I studied abroad, let me talk about an act of rebellion. This is the embodiment of entrepreneurship, an individual's pursuit to achieve their passions and desires by challenging the status quo and making an impact and change on the world. And so, is it working? The entrepreneurship journey is a crazy one. There are many forks, hills, and mountains that an individual needs to climb to reach the mountain of success. However, facing these, I strongly encourage all of you to pursue this journey and to really diversify your skill set and have personal development and growth. So this past summer, I spent abroad at the European Innovation Academy in Turin, Italy. This program brought together 500 students from around the world to compete in a tech startup accelerator for a month. And I chose this program specifically because I've always wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. It was the end of my junior year, and I was skeptical about my future career path as a chemical engineer. Typically, a chemie goes into a process engineering job, and I didn't feel that I wanted to pursue that mundane kind of 9-to-5 type of work. I wanted a challenge, something different, something to wake up to every day, something to accomplish, and something to drive forward and make an impact. And so that is why I chose this program. And so, following the procedures of this program, we were put into teams of 5 students. And at the end of the month, the top 10 teams would be allowed to pitch to venture capitalists, investors, and the mentorship board that assisted each team with developing their product and their idea. And so after the first night, I set after the networking event, having formed a team with 4 other fellow engineers, and we decided to pursue a project on developing an AI water filtration system boat that would then be implemented into the Honghe River in China to help with the purification process. However, as I came back home that night, I realized I really wanted to maximize the potential, the skills, and the diversity I was going to experience in a foreign land. And so the following day, I decided to leave that team and found a position within a second team called Eden. Eden was focused on creating a new food waste management system, and our team composed of 2 chefs, a fellow Haas business student, and a software engineer. However, immediately, my resiliency and persistence would be tested. I came back from a lunch break to receive news that the group had come to a collective agreement that I should be let go, as my chemical engineering skills did not really foreshadow the progress they thought would be capable in their project. And so, leaving disheartened, rejected, and full of fear, I went on to pursue and find another team in the hopes that I could use my skill set to their advantage. And the second team I found was based and focused on creating a new revolutionary cosmetic that would help women combat eczema. However, within an hour, I was kicked from that team again with the idea that I did not have the suitable requirements and knowledge of the current cosmetic industry. And so we are currently 48 hours within the program. I'm left teamless. I feel that no one wants to work with me. I mean, every team seemed to be a startup based off of software engineering, coding, and CS background. I didn't know what I could really offer as a chemical engineer. We didn't really have lab equipment available for us to work and actually pursue and use my talents. And so it was a very hard time for me to get over, and I really actually thought about quitting the program, just going to go travel Europe. But I decided to take the initiative, and I changed my mindset to accepting no, not taking no as an answer. And with that, I went to the singles room where all the other individuals without a team were left, and decided to formulate my own team. And with that, I introduce my tour. My tour consisted of 2 Chinese native students and a fellow Golden Bear. And with previous project management skills, I delegated the tasks necessary for finance, building a business model, and using our, creating a UI and UX friendly user interface. My tour is a one-stop platform for any Chinese consumer to request and order goods internationally at a discounted price. Our objective was to revolutionize the peer-to-peer shipping and delivery market by allowing current travelers to purchase those items abroad and bring them back to China and deliver it to the requested consumer for a service fee. And from this experience, I learned a lot about my own leadership and personal qualities. One of the challenges I faced was working with 2 international students, where the language barrier between Chinese and English was not always set and clear. And so, with that, I encourage all of you to pursue leadership experiences and ensure that you can all grow and make and have confidence in your decisions in your life. Pertaining to leadership, I want to talk about investing in yourself and really taking the spur and taking control of your life and investing in yourself. I talked to Marvin previously before the event, or before embarking to Italy, and asked him on what his feedback would be so that I could maximize my potential in Europe. And he advised reading about entrepreneurship, having knowledge in the space, so that when going abroad, I'd have a competitive edge across my fellow participants. And with that, I read a book called The Startup J-Curve by Howard Love, which analyzed case studies of past entrepreneurial companies and helped me understand what would be required to be a successful entrepreneur. And so I encourage all of you to create an interdisciplinary mindset, find solutions to complex problems, and utilize and really diversify your skills to pursue your dreams and aspirations. And I'd like to close up today by encouraging you even furthermore to take part of the entrepreneurial journey to make a change in this world. Don't be afraid to pursue your dreams or passions. If you have an idea, pursue it. Don't take no for an answer. Utilize and network and make sure that you have all the goods available and really shine. This is a letter from my acceptance last year from UC Berkeley, and it's telling me, as well as all of you as Berkeley engineers, this is your time, the golden opportunity to really make a difference. So I encourage you all to please diversify, remain resilient, and take the initiative to take control of your life and make an impact on this world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jarrett. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing your story. And that's a great opportunity that we can actually take advantage of as Berkeley students studying abroad at that European Innovation Academy. And up next, I'd like to welcome Emily Ma. She's a senior studying industrial engineering and operations research. And this last summer, she worked as a supply chain management intern at SpaceX. And she's going to talk to you today about her experience working over the summer at in the aerospace industry as a woman of color. So let's welcome Emily to the stage.
Sorry, excuse me. Can you all hear me? Yeah? Okay. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm here today to talk to you about launching and navigating a STEM career path as a woman of color. I worked at SpaceX this past summer, so that is going to be the first and last rocket ship-based pun you're going to hear from me today, and hopefully for the rest of your life. I'm a senior industrial engineering and operations major. So I want to give you a little bit of background about me so you can understand where I'm coming from. I use she, her pronouns. Again, I'm a senior IUR major. I'm from Pennsylvania, which I heard is exotic here. And I'm also a second-generation American. So my parents immigrated here from China, and I love them very much. And if you're recording this talk, my mom is going to be super mad at me. And you're going to see why. But I'm giving this talk for you. So who are you? I think this applies to everybody in this room. You're probably a Berkeley student. You probably want an internship. And you probably find interviews a mess that you don't want to deal with. And you're probably very unsure about your future. So the advice I'm going to be giving to you today comes from my experience, again, as a young woman of color, specifically at an aerospace company. But I think that a lot of the advice I'm going to be giving you can be applied to people of any background working in any industry. So my advice comes to you in the form of an acronym. So how the fuck do I get an internship and thrive? And the way you can remember this is you have to be firm, understanding, confident, and kind. And I'm going to go into each of those for you right now. All right, so the first step, you have to be firm. What that means is you got to stick to your guns, and you got to, really stand up for yourself. I know this is really hard coming out of Berkeley. Like the people before me have said, we go to an amazing school. People here do amazing things. It's very easy to feel like what you have to say doesn't matter or doesn't carry as much weight as somebody who's already working at the company, or maybe your manager doesn't want to hear what you have to say or think about a certain project. It's important to get yourself out of that mindset. What you do have to say is important, and you should feel like what you have to say matters and is probably something that other people might have not thought of before. Something else specifically for the women in the room, don't let people interrupt you when you're talking. There's a lot of studies out there that have shown that men interrupt women basically at a higher rate than men interrupt other men. And it's just a social phenomenon that we have to deal with. If that were to happen, don't be afraid to say, "Excuse me, I wasn't finished speaking," or "Excuse me, you interrupted me." There are going to be social situations in which that might get kind of awkward, and if that happens, I encourage you to interrupt them, because if they interrupted you, you should be able to finish what you have to say. So just a tip out there. And again, this applies to anybody who does frequently get interrupted. So the next step, you have to be understanding. So this is mostly to give yourself an easier time. I think this is a positive mindset to have. This is not to say that you should let it go if people make offhand remarks. You shouldn't, but you should understand that basically people might not be saying it out of malice. They might be saying it out of ignorance, or just they're being unaware or inconsiderate. Take this time to evaluate if what the person has said to you is coming from a negative place, and take this opportunity to educate them in a way that will stay with them. So this is different from, let's say, a comment your boss made about, oh, like the millennial generation wants to live at home with their parents, which that did happen. That didn't offend me as much as some random person at work choosing to ask me, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Pennsylvania." He said, "No, where are you really from?" I said, "I'm from Pennsylvania." But stuff like that, and I think everyone in this room has probably had an experience similar to that. So just in order to keep yourself positive and also make connections at work, especially again in the aerospace industry where most of the people are going to be male and white and older, it's important to understand that they sometimes just don't know, and you're the person that should be educating them and interacting with them. So the next step is to be confident. So this is something that I got a lot of feedback on from my boss. He really encouraged me to play myself up more. Don't downplay anything that you've done, and also recognize that the things that you contribute don't necessarily have to be of a technical form. A lot of times, if you think about group projects or group meetings, if you feel like you don't contribute anything, ask yourself things like, am I the one making the meeting times? Am I the one sending out the emails so that everybody's on the same page? Am I making sure that everybody's okay with group decision making? They might not seem like solid contributions, but they really are, and they're the reason why a lot of group efforts succeed or fail. So recognize that not all of your contributions have to be strictly technical. Something else is don't qualify your opinions before you say them. So these would be things like, oh, I'm not an expert in this, but, or this might be a really silly question, but just say your question, say what you think, and don't put that thing ahead of itself. Because if you're going to negatively qualify yourself, you're discounting your own opinion before anybody even gets a chance to hear it. Okay, and the last step is to be kind. And again, this is just what I think would make people's lives easier. Specifically in the aerospace industry, there's usually a divide in the company between the engineers who design the rocket parts and the technicians who put the rocket together. The background of these two different groups of people usually differ very strongly in the education sense. A lot of the engineers look like us and go to school and have master's degrees. The technicians are super skilled, but they've gone to vocational school and come from a completely different background. So it's important to bridge that gap, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it will help you achieve your goals and make your work a lot easier. So thank you, and I hope you guys all go out there and fuck it up.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. That was great. And so now I know how the fuck do I get the most out of my internship, right? So the next person I'd like to welcome to the stage is Jaffee Wirjo. He is a senior studying electrical engineering, computer science, and he did something different. He went and interned at Brookings Institute, something not your usual EECS career path. And so today he's going to talk to you guys about the work that you can do at the intersection of technology and public policy. So thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Jaffee. I'm a third year majoring in EECS, and I'm going to talk to you today about combining my interest in STEM and government. So a little bit about me. I'm very interested in the intersection of technology and public policy. So what does that mean? That means that I'm very interested in devising solutions to tackle some of the world's most challenging problems that involve some sort of science and technology aspect. For example, privacy concerns in big data, or ethical concerns of strong encryption. Public policy is very interdisciplinary, so it combines a lot of fields such as politics, economics, and sociology. And I'm primarily drawn to the subject because I'm very public service oriented. Whatever work I do, I have the public interest in mind. And I'm also very interested in public policy because it gives you a big picture sense of what is going on. As engineers, we usually pay attention to the nitty-gritty of things, how to solve an equation or how to code, or even how to design something in SolidWorks or a computer-aided design software. But I'm very interested in the social implications of technology. So, for example, your code, what does it translate to in real world applications? So, about the time of last spring when I was searching for an internship, I wanted to do something that combined my interest in technology and public policy. And I wanted to look for an organization that was nonpartisan, so it didn't have any political leaning, but it still dealt in this realm of public policy. I looked at a lot of government agencies like the FTC, FCC, and even SEC, but because of the political atmosphere around that time when I was looking for an internship, I decided it would be best if I searched and applied for an organization that was more nonpartisan and policy-based. So eventually, this past summer, I decided to work at the Brookings Institution. So how many of you have heard of the Brookings Institution? Nice, all right, cool, a couple of you. So the Brookings Institution is a public policy think tank and is located in Washington, D.C. So what is a think tank? A think tank basically does public policy research and advocacy, and especially for Brookings, it does it from a nonpartisan platform. And so my official title was a research intern for the Center for Technology Innovation, so I worked on a lot of technology and digital policy issues. One of the projects I worked on was a global health R&D project. So it looked at private sector investment to combat illnesses such as HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And in the work for global health R&D, I worked a lot on data analysis. So what I did was I basically did a lot of web scraping and exploratory data analysis to find out the level of venture capital investment in global health R&D. I also worked on another project called the Digital Plum Book Project. That was actually a project I worked for Cam Carey, who was John Kerry's brother. And in that project, I looked at the number of executive branch positions in cybersecurity policy that are currently unfilled in the Trump administration. I also did a lot of miscellaneous research reports on issues like internet freedom, broadband infrastructure, digital inclusion for minority communities, and even something like net neutrality. And throughout my time at Brookings, I also copy-edited a lot of blog posts that a lot of the scholars wrote, and I was able to write my own blog post on IoT cybersecurity that is now up on the web as well. So to work at Brookings, there are a lot of perks from being at Brookings, one of which is all the famous scholars that you get to work with on a day-to-day basis. For example, I saw Ben Bernanke, who is the former chair of the Federal Reserve, every day in the lunchroom. I was also able to talk to the chief economist who delivered and worked on Obamacare during Obama's administration. And there's a lot of perks of being in DC, namely there's a lot of events that you can attend. For example, as part of my work, I was able to go to google.org, which is a philanthropical arm of Google. And over there, I listened to Senator Mark Warner of Virginia talk about how we can train our workforce to meet 21st century demands in technology. I also went to another event, a private event at Microsoft on TV white spaces. TV white spaces is a part of the FCC spectrum that people can use to deliver super Wi-Fi to rural areas without the current infrastructure for conventional Wi-Fi means. I was also able to attend a lot of events at Brookings, not only in tech policy, but also in foreign policy. Here's a picture of an event that I went to with former vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine. And so there are numerous takeaways that I got from working at Brookings. Number one is that communication is key. I think it's a very hard but invaluable skill to communicate very technical aspects to a broader audience. For example, I wrote a lot of blog posts on RSA encryption or IoT cybersecurity, and as an EECS major, it's very easy to work out the formulas and work out the math behind it, but it's very difficult to communicate how RSA encryption actually works to a broader audience that has no technical background. Oops. Number two, number one thing I like about Brookings is that everyone engaged in issue-based discussion. So there wasn't one time when someone talked about a Democratic or Republican ideal or a liberal or conservative idea. Everyone talked about solutions on how we can fix some of the public policy problems that we have today. And I think this is very fitting for today, especially right now, because I know Ben Shapiro was talking in Zellback Hall, and I think a lot of people can learn from this. This is a quote from one of the scholars here. It says, "Partisanship makes you stupid." My third takeaway is that the environment at Brookings was wonderful. At Brookings, there was not a single person from UC Berkeley, so there wasn't a partner that I could work with or relate to. But a lot of the interns came from all over and were very welcoming, so were a lot of the scholars. A lot of them had very huge public statures, but every one of them were down to earth and very welcoming at the very end. And so here's my punchline. As an engineer, you don't have to work as a software engineer or a design analyst. You can also work in policy, and there's a lot of opportunities for you to work in public policy. And that's it.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for showing us how to apply our technical skills to the public policy realm. Anyways, the next speaker is Alexandria Finley. She also took a very different career path. You probably couldn't replicate it. So I'll tell you a little bit about her. She is a junior studying electrical engineering, computer science, and she interned at Northrop Grumman. But she'll tell you about her drastic change from ballet to EECS. And welcome, Allie. Let's go.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Alexandria. You can call me Allie in a less professional setting because it takes less time. And like Francesca said, I worked at Northrop Grumman this summer, and I am a third year studying EECS. My presentation is debating the age-old phrase, better late than never. Is that true? Is it not? We're going to find out. A little bit of background. I was admitted as a freshman fall 2015, and this past summer I worked as an intern at Northrop Grumman's Mission Systems Sector on their JSF, Joint Strike Fighter program, which is the F-35. I was on 3 projects. Can't really tell you anything about them because they're all top secret, but they were really fun. I was in their communications sector, which was very different from anything I'd ever done before, and I enjoyed each project immensely. And about 2 weeks ago, I accepted an intern conversion offer for July 2018, which means that I will be graduating early and entering their professional development program as a full-time electrical engineer, which is exciting and scary. And adults, so weird. Okay, so with graduating early and having kind of a job already figured out, a lot of people ask me, wow, you must have planned ahead like a ton. You must have had everything figured out when you got here, like everything was just set in stone. To which I say, ha, no. And yeah, that's the exact opposite of what happened. To preface, I would like to emphasize how important timeliness is. Being on time and turning things in on time really demonstrates integrity, dependability, it boosts your own self-confidence, and it's just a generally very good thing in the professional world. So with that being said, it begs the question, is it ever okay to be late? And I like to argue that sometimes yes. My entire senior year of high school, starting in September, I was committed, as in I had signed and was going to, the University of Utah as a ballet major. Not EECS, ballet. Not the same at all. About a week before the SIR was due for Berkeley, my dad, who was a Golden Bear in 1990, asked me to come and visit the campus, and as like a last-ditch attempt so that he knew that when I did go off to Utah, he had done his best to try to get me to go to his alma mater. So I came, I saw, and I fell in love. I sat in on a chemistry lecture in Pimentel. I talked to a bunch of different professors in the EECS department, and I canceled my registration that night and signed my SIR for Berkeley. I think I was sitting at the dinner table at Spanger's down by the marina when I did that, so that was very impulsive of me. And as much as I loved Berkeley and as much as I enjoyed my first 2 years here, I was still kind of planning on pursuing a career in ballet. I was training, and still am training, off campus with a ballet company called Berkeley Ballet Theater, which took up about 20 hours a week. And outside of doing well in school, I didn't really have a whole lot of engineering extracurriculars, which meant that by the time I decided that I needed to apply for an internship, my resume looked like it was in the wrong pile. I had been training at ballet companies over the summer, every summer since I was 14, and like I said, didn't have anything on there other than the fact that it said currently attending UC Berkeley in EECS that would give away the fact that I was studying EECS. So somehow I landed an interview with Northrop and did a really good job in the interview, if I do say so myself, which means that I ended up with an internship position. And I started freaking out as soon as summer rolled around because all the people that I had met and started talking to had either worked there since their senior year of high school, which I was like, what? And then, or they had had prior work experience in other fields. So I felt super out of the loop, super behind the ball. And I remember sitting in my hotel room with my dad the night before work, crying and just saying, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I don't have the technical skills. I don't have the work experience. They're going to eat me alive. To which he said, if you're really that late to the game, you don't have time to waste worrying. And that really made me stop and think about how true that is. If I really was this late to the game, if I really was that behind, I did not have a moment to spend crying and saying, woe is me, about the choices I had made. The only thing that I had time for was looking at the experiences I had had and figuring out how they could help me in the present. So, looking at my dance background, I decided that the most key qualities that I had gotten over the last 17 years of classical ballet training were discipline, being a team player, and accountability, which, helped me a lot throughout my internship. The discipline meant that I was not one of the people sitting in the back watching YouTube videos in the intern bay. I was working every minute of every day, and I was disciplined enough to go ask for help when I needed it. I had already come to terms with the fact that I didn't have work experience, so when I did have a question, I made sure that I went and asked about it. Being a team player meant that I had really good people skills, and I was able to interact with a bunch of different people on my team of varying levels and backgrounds. And I was really good at taking accountability. I knew that I was different from everybody else, and I knew that if I made a mistake, it was better to own up to it rather than just being like, oh, I don't know how that happened. I don't know where that bug came from. It's weird. I don't know. I was able to say, yeah, did that wrong. Learned that language yesterday. So yeah, that was probably my bad. And I did have some technical skills, just not really the ones that are going to help you in a lab. Speaking of technical skills, my first day on the job, my manager called me into his cube, and he's grilling me on the things that I can offer to the team. He's like, do you know this? No. Do you know this? No. Finally, he says, do you know what Perl is? And I said yes, because I had heard of it in 61A. I immediately realized the question had actually been, do you know Perl? As in, can you code in Perl? Which the answer is really no, but at this point it was too late. And he said, okay, you're in charge of our entire scripting job in Perl. So I went home that night, learned it all out of a textbook. And yeah, that was the worst ever. But you got to do it sometimes. So my key takeaway from this summer is taking ownership. Like I've said, your experience doesn't have to be correct. It doesn't have to be the one that everyone has. Person next to you is going to be different. Person next to them is going to be different. That's just the way it's going to be. So what's most important is taking ownership of your past, present, and future. Take ownership of the person that you are today, the choices that you've made that get you there, and the choices that you want to make to get you to where you want to be in the future. And that's it.
Thanks, Allie, for that great reminder about taking ownership. And I want to introduce our 7th and final speaker, Aditya Tyagi. Did I pronounce that right? Okay. Well, he'll tell you. And he interned at Cognite, an IBM Watson company in Abu Dhabi. And so he'll tell you a little bit about blending into the culture and getting the most out of his internship. Welcome him to the stage.
Just 1 second. It's going to be hard. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Yes. Nice. Cool. All right, so I'd like to begin with 2 questions, actually, not related to the presentation. How many of you think that my mustache is a fake and just a stage prop I'm using to draw attention to myself? Okay, that's interesting to hear. How many of you just don't care and think I'm the guy who interned at the circus last summer? Okay, so it's interesting to know that. So my name is Aditya Tyagi. I go by Addy. I'm an industrial engineering and operations research major, and I'm a junior. So with that, let's dive into my presentation. So when I first submitted my slides, I was actually rejected. I got an email back saying that you need to include an explicit introductory slide with all your details. So this is the result of that. So I've got my name, my major, and my hometown. I was brought up in Abu Dhabi. Inside the classroom, I like data science, machine learning, and analytics. I also like just a hint of hardware and EE, so control theory, and a dash of history and economics. Wait, sorry, that wasn't supposed to sound like Sugar Spice and Everything Nice from Powerpuff Girls. Okay, sorry. Outside the classroom, actually, I like to play squash. That's not the vegetable, and no, that's not racquetball either, to those of you wondering. I like exploring crazy historical facts. Do you know that the Titanic had a squash court in first class? And I like watching engineering documentaries, megastructures, and so on. I've got my phone number over there and my year of birth. Whoops, I sort of forgot my passport number. I think the organizers are going to have me like by the neck. Sorry about that. So with that aside, sort of let me tell you what I did. And so I interned at Cognite. Cognite is the exclusive distributor of IBM Watson technology in the MENA region, so the Middle East, North Africa region. It is based out of Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates, and this was over summer 2017. But what did I really do, right? So I didn't intern at the circus, sorry to disappoint. I was an AI SWE intern. So I worked on a technology called WARM, which stands for Watson Assisted Human Resource Management. But before going into that, let's talk a little bit about what is Watson. Watson is a cognitive computing platform. What is cognitive computing? Cognitive computing is being hailed as the new frontier in computing that steps away from so-called explicit rule-based programming. It seeks to create technologies that think, that can make decisions and support those decisions with reasoning, just the way a human being would do. How does WARM relate to that? WARM engages Watson in reading employee emails and then leverages the insight, the personality insight delivered by Watson to compute normalized scores along common HR dimensions. How does that all work in practice? Right. Let's say an HR manager wants to find out, given a new employee, how committed is he to the organization? How much of an insider threat could he be? How does he manage conflicts? Now, normally people would answer such questions using qualitative answers, but no, WARM helps you answer such questions quantitatively. Really, the fundamental idea behind WARM is that great companies are built using smart technology. So that was all sort of like a brief introduction, but I just want to structure my talk a little bit. Over the next 7 minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you a story about how I developed over summer. And like every good story, it's divided into chapters. It's quite literally my perspective. So I've got 6 slides just like that with photos of my perspective. I don't. So chapter 1, blending in. So on my second day at work, actually, I was sitting, squinting hard on my screen, typing furiously away. I'm sure you all have done that. It's called fake work, pretending to work. And it so happened that there was an employee called Sheikha, and she brought a traditional Emirati breakfast for everybody. So one of my coworkers, dropped by and said, "Hey, why don't you join us?" Sure, what's the harm? But there was only 2 small problems. I'm a vegetarian, and most, if not all, of the food was meat-based. And secondly, it's not exactly fun being the only 20-year-old in a room full of 40-year-olds trying to introduce yourself. So what's the obvious thing to do? Say no. And that's what I didn't do. 45 minutes later, after standing in a conference room with an empty plate in my hand and a cup of tea that I pretended to drink, I left. Well, materially, I left empty-stomached. But on a deeper level, what I did had important consequences. The first, it established presence. On a more deeper level, it sent out a very important message that I was willing to immerse myself in the local culture. And I think that's something that's important. So that's all great. So second day, great. Mom, I had like a great day at work today. Like I learned about Watson. What could be cooler, right? The honeymoon phase is over. 1 week later, on a Tuesday morning, I'm actually sitting on my desk feeling down. Most people don't know me. They can't differentiate between me and the tea man or the janitor. My managers don't know what I'm doing, neither do they care. And I was feeling low. So that day, I sort of shuffled back home, and I decided to play a game of squash. So now in squash, something that's very, very important is set to play from the tee. And what that really means is to stand at center court with your racket in the hand and get the ball moving. Figuratively, it means taking the initiative. And that's when I realized, why don't I play from the tee at the workplace? So I got back home, dropped my racket, dropped my bag, flipped open my laptop, sat down and sent a bunch of emails. Hey, do you think you could spare a quick meeting with me tomorrow if you have the time? I just want to update you on my progress. Next morning, I walked into office, and two things happened. Well, the first thing was my coworkers gave me a very weird look. Like, what were you thinking sending an email at like 11:38 at night? But on a far more positive note, actually, my manager walked up to my desk and had a quick chat with me. He couldn't meet with me that day, but he asked me about what exactly I want to get out of this internship, what are my goals, what difficulties I was facing. So that was very useful. Now, chapter 3, the climax. Fast forward 2 weeks into the internship. I was mid-internship. I whipped out my phone and I was looking at Instagram. Now, things you see on Instagram are very rosy. There's the friend interning in Los Angeles, very fun. There's another guy hiking in the Amazon rainforest. Wow, that's also fun. Oh, the next guy, oh, he's in South Africa with riding an elephant. The next person has to be someone like me, sitting on a desk, laboring away, coding Python. Oh no, this guy's in Australia with kangaroos. I had a mid-internship crisis. Is that even a thing? I mean, I know midlife crises are a thing. I was wondering, is this just a resume one-liner? Is that what it's all about? Is this just a stepping stone to full-time employment? How does this even fit into the larger picture? I felt down. That's when I levitated 2 feet above the ground. My hair stood on end. An aura of energy emanated from my body. An orb of light was behind my head. My eyes dimmed. My voice calmed down. I was enlightened. Maybe this wasn't just a resume one-liner. Maybe this wasn't just a stepping stone to a full-time opportunity or even another internship. I was here for the experience. Isn't that what engineers do? The sheer pleasure of building something, creating something that matters. That's what I was That's what I was here for. I learned something important that day. I learned to work for the sake of it. And that's the message I'd like to leave you with today. Actually, no, that's not the message I'd like to leave you with today. The message I'd like to leave you with today is that my mustache is 100% real. I asked that question out in the morning, right? In the beginning of the presentation. That's the message I'd like to leave you with. That being said, I really hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I'm looking forward to a great Q&A session. Thank you so much.
So that concludes all the 7 speakers. Let's give one more round of applause for all of them.
Take this.
So right now, I'd like to invite all the speakers to the stage, and we'll have some Q&A, and they'll be passing out some feedback forms just for our information. But yeah.
You were just sitting over it? Okay, nice. So how do we switch this off? I want to do this.
Is everyone ready? Yeah, it's off. Oh, it's off?
Yeah. You want to keep it on?
Yeah, if you guys could pass that around. Okay, so I'll start off with a question, and anyone can answer this, and then we'll have the audience ask questions after that. I think a lot of us are wondering, oh, you all had such awesome internships, but how did you get them? Were they based on relationships? Did you go to a career fair? How was that process? So if anyone wants to talk, just a few answers would be great.
Hello? Oh, all right. I interned at SpaceX as a supply chain management intern, and I applied through their website, but I think a big reason why I got it is because I was a part of the Berkeley Hyperloop team, or B-Loop, if you haven't heard of them. We're kind of a new build team, and SpaceX hosts an annual Hyperloop competition that was new starting a couple years, or I guess this year. And because of that, I actually asked my manager after I got hired, why did you pick me? And he said specifically because you had experience with something related to the company, and it's really important that you understand the company culture before you come in. So they wanted somebody who really understood that SpaceX was about a huge workload. So that's how I got my job.
I got my internship through a referral. More specifically, I had an Uber engineer crash on my couch. The backstory behind that was I was taking a gap semester in New York City, and one of my best friends, her housing situation fell through, so they had them for a couple days, and we're like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going back to school. And she's like, no, I thought you graduated. If you ever need anything, just reach out to me. And so I did. And Uber was really fast. Within 3 days, they reached out for a phone interview, and the rest was history.
Okay, so I'm sure that some of you have been to the career fairs that are offered by various departments and whatnot here. I did interview and had 2 rounds of interviews for an opportunity. Unfortunately, I don't think that we were the right match for each other. But I think that if you go to the career fair and you just make a really good connection with someone there, then that's a way that you can start growing your network. If you do proceed along a career path that you do like, and you sort of build your connections up, you'll start, the connections and the opportunities will sort of, appear before themselves. Because you have a network that you can rely on. You have a network of people that you can sort of ask for different opportunities and openings.
I think we're gonna allow time for other questions, but did anyone in the audience want to ask a question? No?
Anyone? Okay, let's continue with Allie then.
I was aggressive. I sent my resume to a project manager at Northrop Grumman with a little cover letter. So that worked out for me because then they flew me down to San Diego to interview in person, which was cool. So be aggressive. Be aggressive if you want, if that's your style.
All right, Leo, I see in the audience you look like you have a question. So let's do it.
Yes, because they hired me. So, that's that.
Yes, I think the people at where I worked, Brookings, was wonderful, and because of the environment that I really liked, I would definitely go back.
Yes, because it's cool there.
Sure, question mark. I mean, I got a return offer. I'll see what happens, but I really did like the team.
I really liked going abroad and traveling and seeing the world, so I would do a similar program again internationally.
I think, fortunately, I've had, a good opportunity with the organizations and companies I've been with. But if you feel like you want to go in a separate direction or it wasn't a good experience for you, then I would just say try to listen to yourself and see where you want to go next.
All right, NG has a question.
Okay, this may be a bit specific, but I recall hearing sometime down the whole presentation, someone mentioning working for the sake of work. I was wondering if you could give a bit more perspective on that.
Wait, before we get into answering the question, could the person who's asking the question give a little bit more background about themselves?
Hi, my name is Enzi. I'm a senior mechanical engineering major. I tutor at the ESS, and this past summer I worked at Amazon Labs.
This works. Yeah, sure. I think that's a really a great question. Sort of working for the sake of it. That's something I arrived at really by trial and error, thinking about it in that way. I think all of us as college students, we have this grade-based mentality in the sense that when you take an exam, you get an outcome. When you submit a project, you get an outcome. When you try out for a team, you get an outcome. And I think sometimes in life, we just get too caught up in the outcome and forget the beauty of just working for the sake of it. As an example, I was, that person who was just looking for recognition. I think everyone does that, right? From my superiors, from my coworkers, that sort of thing. But then when I stepped back and really thought about that recognition, it's great, and all of us do, like, recognition does sort of segue into many other opportunities. But sometimes it's just important to step back and say, oh, this is the work, and I'm just doing it for the sake of it, So that's how I approached I reached that conclusion.
Yeah, I think kind of the bottom line with when you are taking an internship or a job is you're not, kind of the idea of a resume one-liner, like just getting a name on a piece of paper is great and all for getting your foot in the door, but at the end of the day, like, you have to spend some amount of time, whether it's 40 hours a week, 80 hours a week, whatever it is, you're spending time with this company doing actual physical work, so you might as well be enjoying it. Otherwise, you're just not going to be very happy, and that's sad. It's sad bears.
Does anyone else want to answer that question, or we have more questions in the audience? Okay, any other questions? I see one right there.
So I'm curious, a few of the larger naming companies that were here this week, even for career fairs, already have their internship application window closed, right? And so that seems really soon. And I heard somebody mentioning that they were even looking as late as spring. So I want to find out if any of you guys had any super late acceptances or kind of what that time frame is.
I sent my resume in March. So, power play. I think don't do it that late would be my recommendation. But definitely, if the company that you're interested in says that their application window is closed, that's when it's most important to send it to a person, not necessarily like a website. Like I said, I sent mine to a project manager. And I just said, hey, I don't know if you guys are still looking for interns. I don't know what your end of things looks like, but I'm really interested in working here. Here's my resume. Here's a quick little cover letter. I hope to hear from you soon. So just kind of something like that would be good.
I also didn't get my offer until kind of late. They gave me a summer internship offer around February or March. I also think it depends on the company that you're looking at. I know for SpaceX specifically, they kind of hire as the need arises. So even though they might close a window, they'll kind of do like a rolling application thing where if you've applied once, they kind of keep the resume in the pile. And if it comes up and somebody wants to contact you, just expect that it might come a lot later than you think it will.
I also got my offer late February, early March. I came back to school in January. I took a gap semester last fall, and I was frankly kind of terrified. Start early if you can. It also depends on the company, depends on the field. If you're looking for big tech, I think maybe start now. But if you are fine with startups, and I love startups, maybe February, March is probably the optimal time for that.
Okay, and then Andrew actually has an answer to this question too.
Yeah, so my name is Andrew. I'm a junior double majoring in mechanical engineering and business, and this past summer I interned at Tesla. And the way that I got it was also similar to Emily's example of SpaceX. So Tesla actually doesn't even recruit until January. So if you're applying to Tesla right now, they're looking for spring interns or full-time people. And so I was scrambling winter break. I was like none of the career fairs worked out. What am I supposed to do? But I went I was on LinkedIn, also reaching out to a bunch of people, and I also didn't know anyone. But through that, realized that I wasn't late at all for this company specifically, and that I was actually a bit early because I was so freaked out, and their timeline was so late, and I got my offer in mid-March, so it was really not that much in advance. So just wanted to put that out there.
And then also to add on to that, I took last semester off to intern at Apple, and I got my offer in about October, where my start date was in January. So it's not a typical summer internship, but it still was a few months before instead of, I know there's a lot of pressure to get an internship a year before the summer. If anyone has any final comments, we can do that, and then we can wrap up.
Sure. So I was working with my offers in May, so that was the last minute. I think there's two different types of internship opportunities. There's the ones that require a structured process where you apply, you wait, you do your interviews and whatnot. And there's also ones that you can network yourself. And I think there's someone that I look up to is a mentor of mine, but his slogan is persistence, persistence, persistence. If you really want the opportunity, go out for it. Don't let it just pass you by. So.
Can I share something?
Sure.
So my perspective was a bit different from the other ones because I was doing abroad. So again, to answer your question, sometimes deadlines in the United States might be different from. Usually, it's the case that they're different from the ones abroad. So you can also consider foreign internships. And how to go about them is normally you can just visit the company website and then send an email or sort of send an application across. But then just keep in mind that sometimes I think abroad the concept of an internship is very different. One of my previous interns where I interned at Sears, of sort of a machine learning intern. For them, an intern was an engineering graduate who had finished his 4 years of engineering and then was beginning full-time employment. So they defined intern as a full-time person, not just a summer fling sort of a thing. So that's just different definitions of internships and different deadlines to sort of keep in mind. That's sort of my spiel on that.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Before you head out, we have a networking and pizza in which room? Oh, in Garverini Lounge right out here. So you can speak with any of these speakers up here. And then also, please make sure to turn in your feedback forms to either me, Francesca, or Andrew. We really want feedback on how to make this event better, and which topics do you want to hear about more, and everything like that. So fill that out, send it to us, and then there should be pizza outside. Thank you, everyone.